I've been waiting for you. Dude, you don't have to use that tone of voice. Did you really just say that to me? Here's what we're going to cover today. 7 common types of disrespect. Every time you stay silent and you just kind of shrug your shoulders as you are feeling or being disrespected, your confidence takes a hit. Your own self-respect takes a hit. There are simple ways that you can call it out, and every time you call it out, you will feel a little bit more confident. You'll feel a little bit stronger self-awareness. And so, number 1, you're going to learn about the 7 types of disrespect. And number 2, we're going to talk about how you call them out so that you start to feel more empowered in your day-to-day life. So, 7 common types of disrespect that you need to call out. So, number 1, this is when people talk over you. Yes, it happens all the time. You may not even be aware of how often it is happening to you. Now, for example, I'm going to give you an example from my own life. I did not realize that I am guilty of talking over one of my daughters. And, I said very early on in this video to you that a lot of people that are engaging in these common forms of disrespect don't really realize when they're doing it. And the reason why they don't realize it is because they've been doing it for so long and people just sort of put up with it and don't call them out on it that you don't even hear yourself when you're doing it. I don't personally want to be disrespectful. I don't want to talk over other people. What happens is I get so excited when somebody's talking about something that's interesting to me that I tend to just layer something on. And this was a real problem in our family dynamic, and I didn't even know it. Here's what happened. We've got 3 kids. We have our oldest, who is Sawyer, our middle daughter, Kendall, who's 21, and our son, who is 16. And then there's me and Chris. And about a year ago, we were at dinner, talking up a storm, and Sawyer went to go tell a story. And Kendall and I, we literally jumped right in and started talking over her. And Sawyer took her hands and hit the table and said, "Will you guys stop it? You're always talking over me. Always. I'm so sick of it." And both Kendall and I kind of sat back and were like, whoa, we are? I didn't even know it. So Sawyer pointing it out was an incredible moment in our family because number 1, this has been a dynamic that's been driving her crazy for years. She has felt very disrespected. She is also a little bit more introverted. Kendall and I are extroverted. And we were unaware that we were basically engaging in behavior that made her feel disrespected, run over, unimportant. And it was simply because we were just jumping in on topics that she was talking about. And so ever since she's called me out on it, I am very, very, very mindful. I'm not always great at it, but I'm very mindful that when someone is talking, to please keep my mouth shut. So when someone talks over you and you start to feel disrespected, when somebody interrupts you and you feel disrespected, you need to call it out. Here's a couple ways that you can do it. You can do it like Sawyer did. You can throw your hands on the table and say, "Would you stop constantly interrupting and talking over me?" You can also keep talking. This is a really effective thing to do if you're at work. If you're at work in a meeting and somebody interrupts you, this happens to women all the time, and somebody starts talking over you, just keep talking and keep talking louder. Or you can say, "Excuse me, I was talking," and keep talking. Or you can say, "Hey, Mike, I was talking. Please don't interrupt me." Calling somebody out stops the disrespect and it empowers you because you're respecting yourself. All right, let's move on to number 2. So number 2, common form of disrespect that you need to call out is people in your life who are perpetually late. Now, I have a confession to make. This used to be me. One of the embarrassing things about making this video is literally these 7 types of disrespect are so common, I realized that I engaged in them in the past or I engage in them now. And you will probably, as you're listening to me, realize, holy cow, perpetual lateness, guilty as charged, Mel Robbins. That's a form of disrespect? Yes, it is. And again, people who are constantly running late particularly those folks who don't give you a heads up if they're running late, but they breeze in 10 to 15 minutes late. Oh, I'm sorry. Most people who are perpetually late are very hard on themselves and they feel bad about being late. And so they're so consumed by making themselves wrong that they don't realize that their lateness is enormously disrespectful to you. And so what you want to do if you've got somebody in your life who is running perpetually late, like I used to, is you need to call it out. You just need to call it out, because the person that's constantly running late is so busy beating themselves up, so busy feeling anxious because they're constantly running late, so consumed in the habit of being late and then saying, I'm sorry, and, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm sorry, that they haven't been yanked out of that and pulled to a higher conversation, which is one that's like, look, I get that you got stuff going on in your life, but when you show up 10 minutes late and I've been waiting for you, you are disrespecting my time. And if you do it again, I'm not going to make plans with you. When you put it in their behavior and how it's impacting you, most of us, when we're called out in that manner, like your lateness is a sign of disrespect, it's mortifying. And that's the kind of truth bomb that some people need, myself included, in order to understand the impact of your behavior that you're not getting intentional about changing. And look, occasionally running late, that's one thing. But a common form of disrespect is to have somebody in your life who is perpetually late, to roll your eyes, to gripe about it behind their back, but to never say anything about the fact that it actually bothers you. So when you say that it bothers you, please do not waste my time. Two things happen. You're going to cause, hopefully, a breakthrough and an awakening for the person who's perpetually late. And you're also going to feel a jolt of respect and confidence for yourself by calling it out. The third form of disrespect that's so common that you're probably not calling it out is when somebody is dismissive of you. So what is dismissiveness? Because it's not really being rude. The behavior's rude. But dismissiveness is when somebody's acting in a way that they are indifferent or they're disregarding you. Okay, so it's a little bit different than somebody just being flat out rude. It's sort of this subtle behavior where, holy cow, you're picking up this sign that somebody is totally indifferent to how you feel, or they're disregarding how you feel. And the most common form of this, and it is rampant, is when you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden they start looking at their phone. Like literally, how many times have you been in the middle of a conversation and either your friend or your partner or your kid or somebody at work, you're talking about something and you look at your friend and all of a sudden they look down at their phone? That is dismissiveness. If you are sitting at a table, right, and you're having lunch with somebody and you're busy having a conversation and this person is now texting somebody that's not there. Instead of being present with you, they're on their phone texting somebody that's not even present at lunch. That is dismissiveness. And you need to call it out because, number one, particularly as it relates to the phone, that's an addiction. People don't even realize that they're doing it. And it's become so ubiquitous in life that we literally don't even think about the impact that it's having on other people. And so if this is somebody, a friend, if this is a colleague, if this is somebody in your family, it's a partner, and somebody is being dismissive. They're looking at their phone, or you're pointing something out, oh my God, the full moon, and they don't even acknowledge it. That's showing indifference and disregard. And you need to call it out because that behavior is impacting you. Now, again, I'm starting to feel like the world's worst person because I'm realizing I have been called out on all this shit all the time. My husband has called me out on this in particular with the phone, that if, Mel, I'm talking to you, I want to have the experience of you paying attention. And he said to me, there's a very big difference between you hearing me and me experiencing that you're actually listening. How many times have you had that experience where you're talking to somebody and they're like on their phone, like, and they're like, are you even listening to me? And they're like, yeah, you said that you wanted to get pizza tonight instead of getting sushi. Now they heard what you said, but the way they were behaving was dismissive because they made you feel as though they were indifferent or were disregarding what you were saying. And so one of the things that happened for me, because I, of course, did not realize that behavior made Chris feel like I was indifferent or that I could care less about what he was talking about, is I actually have a basket in my kitchen where we put the phone. It's there except for when the kids take it, which they did a couple days ago. So I'm realizing I need to actually replace the basket that's in the kitchen. And that's where the phone goes when I'm not working. And when I am with my husband, my phone is typically in my purse or on a counter. It's not on my person, because if it's on my person, I tend to pick it up. And it's only in the calling it out that I have become way more conscious about this behavior. Now, what's going to happen for you when you call out somebody that's being dismissive is you are going to feel more confident. You're going to feel more respect because you are asking for what you need in order to be respected. And that's why it's so important to call this stuff out. Again, rule number one, most people that are engaging in these common forms of disrespect don't mean to be disrespecting you. So calling it out helps them and it helps you. So let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is when people are condescending. This one sucks. And again, this whole list is making me feel kind of bad about myself because I'm realizing that I engage in being condescending. And so I'm going to give you an example of how subtle this can be. So my husband has this style of communicating where he kind of asks a question out loud. So he might turn to me and say, so are we getting snow this weekend in Vermont? And in the past, without even thinking, I will turn and go, do I look like a weatherman? I have no idea if we're getting snow in Vermont. Why don't you just Google it? I have no idea. So Chris is just casually asking about the weather, and I am being a condescending jerk. And so if somebody responds to a question or somebody responds to something that you're saying in a condescending way, call it out. Chris is really good at this. I feel like I'm bringing you into a marriage therapy counseling session right now. But Chris is really good at this. So he'll literally go, dude, you don't have to use that tone of voice. I was just asking if you knew what the weather was. I thought maybe since you're online all day, you would have seen the weather report. And it's easier to ask you, Mel, than it is to Google. When somebody points out that you're being condescending, honestly, I personally feel like a jerk. So I appreciate it when somebody calls me on my tone of voice, which my kids also do, or they point out when I'm being a little bit rude and I didn't mean to. And it makes me a kinder and a nicer person. Now, what is it going to do for you? It's going to make you feel better about yourself, because every time you call out somebody's tone of voice or you call out a demeaning way that they're talking to you, you feel a little bit better about yourself because you're not putting up with that crap because you don't have to. Number 5 common way that people are showing disrespect is when they're pressuring you. I'm sure you've had this happen. You don't feel like going out. You don't want to get out of your sweats and get off your couch and turn off the television and go meet your friends out, even though you said that you would. This is the kind of pressure that you get when you're like, guys, it's been a long day at work and I just don't want to go out. I've changed my mind. You send the text and then what are you getting back? Oh, come on. You're such a party pooper. You never go out anymore. That kind of pressure blows and it's disrespectful. Like what you want to hear from your friends, what you want to hear from your family is totally get it. We're going to miss you. Is there anything that you need from us? And so you need to call it out because you're not supposed to be a battering ram for that kind of pressure just because people are annoyed that you don't want to do something that they want to do. Stand your ground, do what works for you, and do not put up with it. Because some nights you just need to be in your sweats and you need to watch TV and you need to do what works for you. Forget the pressure and focus on yourself. All right. let's go to number 6. And number 6, ooh, this one stings. This is one of those forms of disrespect that when it happens to you, you're like, did you really just say that to me? Really? And that is a backhanded compliment. Oof. Those backhanded compliments. What is a backhanded compliment? It's like when somebody says something that in their stupidity, they think is going to make you feel good, but underneath it, there's this underlying assumption about you that actually hits you because it is the opposite of making you feel good. And here are some common examples of backhanded compliments. Oh, you're going back to work? That's so great. I could never let my kids be with a stranger all day, or I'd feel so bad if I put my kids in daycare. Wait, did you compliment me about going back to work, or did you slam me for putting my kids into daycare? Which one is it? Because it's not this, it can't be both, right? Or how about this one? Oh my gosh, you're so articulate for somebody who just graduated from college. Or your hair looks so professional when it's straight. You should really straighten it more often. Or, God, you look so much better without makeup. Now, the context is really key because there's some friends or family members that when they say something to you about the fact that you just look so good without makeup, they actually mean it. They're not saying, boy, you do a terrible job at makeup. They actually mean it. But there's times when you get these kinds of backhanded compliments where you know that it's really not a compliment at all. We were also laughing about the fact, as we were talking about this video, my team and I, that I could come up with this example. I have not actually said this to my husband yet, but I realized that if I'm not careful, it would come out as a backhanded compliment. So my husband has recently discovered this amazing type of pants that Lululemon makes that sort of look like khakis, but they're not really khakis. They're really like performance fabric joggers. And I don't really love them on my husband. I prefer when my husband wears a particular style of jeans. I just think he looks so great and so pulled together, and they're really flattering. And the problem is that these Lululemon pants that he has found are really soft. They're really comfortable. And he now wears them all the time. He wears them with clogs. Not the greatest look. He wears them when we're going out to dinner. Not exactly my favorite look. Are they fine around the house? Of course. Are they fine when you're doing chores? Of course. Are they fine when you're exercising? Absolutely. But this little backhanded compliment thing is making me realize that when I make the request or I compliment the fact that he's wearing jeans, I need to do it in a way that's really respectful and really empowering instead of sliding into the area of a backhanded compliment. So I'm going to work on that. All right. And the final one is lack of consideration. This one is kind of sneaky. And it's happens a lot because people get so wrapped up and focused in what they're doing that they don't realize that what they're doing is having an impact on you that feels like disrespect. So here's a scenario. You're sitting, at the kitchen table and you're working on something, you're typing or you're writing or you're reading, and somebody in your family or your partner comes in, turns on the television and starts watching television or watching a game, and it's really loud, and now you're distracted. I can give you another one because my kids do this all the time, or at least they used to until I started calling it out. I would be cooking dinner and all 3 of the kids would be on their phones and they would be watching TikTok videos with their volume on. So all 3 of them are watching different videos with different sounds, all going at the same time. And none of them seem to be bothered by it. But it has a lack of consideration that feels really disrespectful. Well, it certainly feels disrespectful to me because I find it really distracting when I'm listening to 3 different videos playing at the same time. And so calling it out not only will point out behavior that somebody may not even realize is distracting. I mean, if you have the ability to watch a video and just pay attention to your sound and tune out all the other sounds around you, that's a superpower. And so you don't realize that the fact that you're listening to something out loud is really kind of disrespectful to everyone around you. I'm sure you've been like on a plane, or you've been on a subway, or you've been just standing in line at a coffee shop and somebody's watching their phone and they got the volume up and you're like, are you serious here? Or they're on FaceTime with their grandma. Hey grandma, how you doing? And you're standing in line at a coffee shop. Super disrespectful. You might not call out a stranger, but you certainly want to point out to somebody, hey, could you lower that down? Or, hey, would you mind putting some headphones on, trying to concentrate over here on something, or it's kind of loud. Calling that kind of stuff, it is so important, because what happens is people, again, don't realize that what they're doing is a form of common disrespect. And when you call it out, you are showing yourself some respect. And every time you do, I promise you, it's going to boost your confidence. All right. So what are those 7 types of disrespect? Number 1, someone talking over you. People don't even hear it. Point it out. Explain what you want them to do. And you're going to feel really empowered, because you're taking control of a moment that normally makes you feel marginalized and disrespected. Number 2, perpetual lateness. I promise you, your friends that are perpetually late, they're already beating themselves up over it. And maybe, just maybe, you pointing out how disrespectful it is the breakthrough that they need, that is going to change this habit once and for all. Dismissiveness. This is indifference or disregard. I think we're all so addicted to our phones these days, we don't even realize how our behavior staring at our phones makes the people around us feel like we're not even present or listening. 4, being condescending. I mean, honestly, even though I was admitting it to you and I feel like a jerk that I do it, I think a lot of us don't even hear it in our tone of voice. We let our frustration in the day kind of boil over into condescending tones of voice. If this is something that's chronic with your friends or with your partner, you got to call this stuff out. Do not let people talk to you in a condescending tone of voice. 5, pressure. Just because somebody wants you to do something doesn't mean you have to do it. And once you say no, no is a complete sentence. And if somebody continues to try to guilt, cajole, manipulate, pressure you, call them out on it. Not cool. Number 6, backhanded compliments. If somebody says something to you that you're like, wait, was that like a positive? Did they just say that to me? Call that shit out. They might not hear it, or they might just be kind of a mean person and they need somebody like you to stand up straight and let them know that that's just not cool. And finally, lack of consideration. You have the right, and you should develop the practice of letting people know when they're behaving in a way that is not that considerate. 9 times out of 10, they probably don't even realize it because they've tuned out everybody around them. But when you stand up for yourself, you're going to feel a boost in your confidence. You're going to feel more self-respect. And that, honestly, is the beginning of feeling it everywhere in your life. Thank you for watching. And if you liked this and you got some value out of it, you're going to love this one next.